So let's talk about learning objectives, standards usage, and mastery inside of Schoology. They have a very interesting system for each course set up here on the left-hand column. You'll see mastery. I'm going to start what one of my classes looked like at the end of last year. You can see this mastery grade book keeps track of every standard that you taught and how many times that you taught it, and it generates an average score of each student's success rate on that particular standard. So you can see which students did very well at each individual standard, or which standards, if you look top down, which standards your classroom might not have met so well. So for this one, I can see that for CCRA W2, that was something that the whole classroom needed particular work on. But you can also see in this little square, the smaller number is the number of times that a Schoology assignment touched on that particular standard or learning target. So for this one here that I had so many students struggle with, there was only one assignment that I attached to that standard. And so there weren't that many opportunities for them for Schoology to generate the data that I needed to really see how well everyone was doing. You can also see here on this first one, which is just simply following directions, I've set it up so where that if a student shows a certain number, or a certain percentage of mastery on an assignment on more than one occasion, so for instance, I think the number I've set it to is 3, so if they show above 85% on 3 different occasions, they'll receive a little star here. And so that tells me that that student has achieved mastery on that particular standard, and I can probably move on to something else with them. But overall, this grid here is extremely helpful for figuring out what direction you need to take your class, or what steps you need to take for individual students for differentiation. All around great tool for data-driven instruction. But how do you set this up in the first place? Where do you put in the standards into Schoology? How does it track it for you? How can we do whatever we can do to make sure that this works as well as it does? So I'm going to start with a course that I'm building for the upcoming school year. And I'm going to go ahead and click on my first unit here. And let's see, we'll work on a okay. Let's make an assignment. So click Add Materials, Add Assignment. And fill in the forms, pretend we're doing something, do all of this. Now, to set up standards and learning targets inside of an assignment or discussion board or tests or quizzes, you've got to make sure that it's going to grade the right way. So you've got to attach a grading category. So I'm going to select one. All right. And now that I've done that, that's going to give me the option to set a scale or rubric. Now, rubrics are a great way, probably the most efficient way at attaching a learning target or a standard to an assignment. And also it helps you grade the assignment much more easily and much more quickly. But if you want a more simple approach here, you can go down to options and select this target here. And if you click that, it'll bring up a list of all of the available learning targets and standards that Schoology has already built in. So if you can choose, say, Common Core. They've got English Language Arts and Mathematics. So you can click on that. You click your grade. I use College Career Readiness. You can click the area that you're working with, and again, another subject, and then you can finally select the standards that you want to use for that particular assignment. And then you simply click Add Learning Objectives, and it attaches those to that assignment. So whenever you do go about grading it, it lists that inside of the mastery form that I mentioned earlier. Now also, you see this option here for custom learning objectives. This one's pretty important, I think, because what it allows you to do is you can go in and you can create your own learning objectives. So what I've done here is I've taken the college and career readiness anchor standards for English language arts, and I've rewritten all of them as I can statements. So this is something that the students can easily read, easily understand. They know exactly what the assignment is asking them to do, and they understand what exactly it is that I'm looking at when I go to grade them. Close that. But to set that up, to set up your own personal standards, if that's something that you're interested in, what you'll do is you'll go to your personal resources, and over here you'll click on Learning Objectives, and then you simply click Add. And then you can add custom learning objective, and you'll have to do that. You'll have to do that one by one, which is a bit of a time sink, but you do it once and you never have to do it again. And you know, in the long run, I think it's saved me a great deal of time, and it's been a very powerful tool to have all of these built in there. Now, back to where we were. Now, I mentioned that another option here was going to be using the rubrics inside of Schoology. And again, I think that's where you're going to find the best bang for your buck and the greatest feedback from your students and the greatest level of understanding from all members involved in looking at the particular assignment. So parents will have a better understanding, students will have a better understanding, and then you as a teacher will have a better grasp of each individual standard and how the students are doing overall. So what I'll do is I'll click on this drop-down menu, and then I'm going to go to, you'll see the default here is numeric, so it's simple 100-point system. You can also do a letter grade system, and then this part of the drop-down menu down here will show you all of the other rubrics that you've created. So once you make it one time, you can actually go back and you can add it to all of your other assignments. There's no need to recreate the rubric every time you make a new assignment. So that's a pretty neat time saver. But for this, we'll click Create New. You'll see it brings up a blank rubric for us. So give it a name. And from here, what I'll do is I'm going to click the Learning Objectives button to add a learning objective. There is another video attached to the professional learning PowerPoint that I've made for this that describes how to create, edit, add criterias and grading scales inside of the rubric. So if you want to know a little bit about that, you can check that video out. But for just this one, just click the learning objective. And you can go through, and just as before, you can select the Common Core, Science Standards, whatever it is. You can select all of the ones that you want to use for this assignment, or you can use your own personal one. So I'm going to click Custom Learning, Personal, and then I'll just run the list. I'll select the ones that I want to use in this particular assignment, and click Add. And you'll see they've automatically been added into this particular assignment that we're working on. And it goes through, and the students can see the name of the standard, they can see the I can statement that we created, and then of course as we select the category here, the grading scale here, when we are going through grading, the student's going to see immediately what their feedback is and why they've gotten the grade that they've gotten, and that'll allow them to have a better understanding of what it is they need to change and work on as they move towards their revise or retake of the assignment or project. So for example, you can see here on my weekly think piece discussion boards, I've already established a think piece rubric, and each part of the rubric is directly attached to one of those I can statement, learning objective standards. I've gotten the core value of the different components of the grading scale set up, and so you see there's a possibility of 50 total points. I still have to go back in and fill these out for descriptors of what each level is, and of course to change some of these values. I like this 10, 7, 4, 1 system. Here, I think that's a good way to split this up if you wanted to do 4 categories. And then, so what happens is when the students complete the discussion board, it'll pull up this rubric for me, and I can go and I can click according to the descriptors what the student has earned. Schoology automatically totals that up and places it in the Schoology gradebook, but it's also going to copy it into the mastery setting here. So if I click on that, you can see that those particular standards for that rubric that I've selected are already in this mastery list. It's just waiting for these students to come in and complete that assignment and get that grade. And I'll get feedback on that every single time that they do it. And it's all nice and neat and organized into one location. So as I said before, I can get a really great understanding of who needs help where, who needs on an individual level a little bit of extra attention, and then which standards or learning targets as an entire classroom do I need to go back and reteach or provide more opportunities for the students to practice and hopefully find success.